American life. It has protected the common good from religious factionalism, and it has ensured the integrity of faith from too close an alliance with the state. Although unprecedented, the impetus for religious disestablishment, as embodied in the First Amendment, grew out of disparate impulses dating back at least to the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century. Martin Luther had emphasized the priesthood of believers, each individual's responsibility before God, which led almost inevitably, if not immediately, to the concession that everyone might approach God differently from his or her neighbor. The very splintering of Christianity after the Reformation demanded some sort of accommodation to its diversity. Several of the American colonies had done just that. Thomas Jefferson himself cited the examples of New York and Pennsylvania in his Notes on the State of Virginia, written in 1781. Though the established religions in other colonies, such as the Anglicans in Maryland and Virginia and the Congregationalists in Massachusetts and Connecticut, stubbornly defended their establishment status. Other early voices include figures and movements such as Isaac Backus and the Separate Baptists in Massachusetts, or William Livingston and the Presbyterian Party in New York as influential opponents of religious establishment. Most often, however, when historians retrace the steps of religious disestablishment in America, their paths lead to Roger Williams, founder of the Baptist tradition in America, and Thomas Jefferson, one of the nation's founders and the country's third president. It's important to stipulate here at the outset that the phrase church and state has evolved into a kind of shorthand for understanding the relationship between two much larger, albeit amorphous, entities. One of the characteristics of the Atlantic seaboard during the colonial period was its religious diversity, ranging from Puritans in New England to Anglicans in the South. In between, groups as diverse as Baptists in Rhode Island, the Dutch Reformed in the Middle Colonies, Swedish Lutherans in Delaware, Jews in New York City, Presbyterians in New Jersey, Catholics in Maryland, and Quakers in New Jersey and Pennsylvania all established a toehold on the religious landscape of colonial America. In addition, Pennsylvania alone sheltered diverse religious minorities, including Lutherans, Mennonites, Moravians, and Schwenkfelders. Not all groups existed in perfect harmony. The Puritan government in Massachusetts hanged Quakers on Boston Common. In 1649, Maryland, founded by Roman Catholics, passed a Toleration Act ensuring religious liberty, but it was rescinded 5 years later after Puritans seized control of the colony. Under Edward Hyde, Viscount Cornbury, the governor of New York, the colonial government sowed unrest in Dutch Reformed congregations as a way of preferring the Church of England. In some places, authorities sought to coerce religious uniformity and conformity. In colonial Virginia, for example, the Church of England was the established religion, and some magistrates were zealous in defense of Anglican prerogatives. Baptists, because of their insistence on religious liberty, often felt the sting of persecution. Baptists were thrown in jail in Spotsylvania, Virginia in 1768 for disturbing the peace because of their preaching. A judge named Edmund Pendleton sentenced Baptist preachers to jail for what one contemporary called the heinous charge of worshiping God according to the dictates of their own consciences. A sheriff brutally horsewhipped a Baptist minister, and a gang of well-dressed men nearly drowned 2 other Baptists by holding their heads under water in a nearby river, a cynical riff on the Baptist insistence on believers' baptism by full immersion. Amid all this diversity and persecution, some colonists began to warn publicly against the dangers of religious establishment. It is not to be doubted, William Livingston, a graduate of Yale, activist in New York politics, and later the first governor of New Jersey, wrote in 1768 that every man who wishes to be